Welcome back everyone, my name is Eltimar and we're going to be continuing our Let's Play of Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. Where we left off last time, we had gotten our quest from Mr. Horgizgorm. He's already left the building. We have a few people to talk to though. Let's talk to Jernog first. A young man in well-worn traveling clothes and a simple wooden symbol of a rastal on his chest is efficiently cutting a linen robe into strips to use as bandages. Despite his visible exhaustion, he works with zeal, singing some tune about red braids and the ripe sheaves of wheat under his breath. He raises his warm, chestnut-colored eyes to you. Are you one of the Crusaders? Thank you for defending those of us whose talents lie off the battlefield. I'm Jernog, servant of Erastil. Pleased to meet you. What are you doing? I only took my holy orders recently, so my god has only bestowed a little of his power upon me. As yet. I'm sorry to say that the number of wounded fighters in this tavern is far beyond my power to heal, but there's a reason people say have faith in the gods, but look to yourself first. I may not be able to help the wounded with magic, but I can at least cut up bandages. Are you from around here? No. Just passing through Canabris, I was sailing down that old man of ours, the Great Selin River, to a village by the name of Chilly Creek. I happened to land in the city on the eve of the festival, and I'm ashamed to say, I decided to stay for a day to enjoy myself, but I ended up staying in the city longer than I bargained for. Chilly Creek, where's that? It's a small fishing village. It's not even marked on any maps, or some maps, but people do live there. What they don't have is a priest. They have no one to heal their wounds, no one to offer prayers for a good catch, no one to give their dead a dignified burial, and the world wound is only a stone's throw away. So I'll be setting sail for Chilly Creek to serve my god and my people. Once we've held Canabris, I'll be going there. If by the grace of good gods we all survive this, you should come and visit me sometime. You'll find the village here on the bank of the river. The priest marks Chilly Creek on your map. Aren't you a young and inexperienced cleric afraid to go to the border of the world wound? I won't lie, I'm afraid, but what can I do? Those villagers are simple people. Every day of their short lives is spent doing hard, honest work. That's exactly the kind of life I want. Something simple but meaningful. If I had centuries ahead of me like the elves do, I might have spared some 50 years or so to travel around the world, the young man says with a smile. Or maybe even 100. Jeez, why not? I don't have any time to spare. So I want to spend my short life in the place where I'm needed most, even if it's dangerous. Especially if it's dangerous. I could use the help of a cleric. Jernog makes a helpless gesture. Erastil knows I'll be glad to help you, but it's no use. My spells are depleted, and I have no training in potions or scrolls. See this rope I'm cutting up for bandages? It's the second to last one. I have to go. May Erastil watch over you. Let's go meet up with Woljif. Surrender thy soul, Delvin. Iomade protect us. I got you, again. How many times is that today? Take your jokes and shove 'em, tiefling. Whoa, easy there, Chief. Don't hit me.
Hey, Chief! Hey, Dreamboat, come over here! I want to talk to you about something. Something really important.
The young tiefling sits cross-legged on the floor. He looks relatively calm for someone in shackles, but his tail whips back and forth in agitation. Noticing your attention, the tiefling sits up and beckons us over.
Quit bothering the decent people in here, Woljif, or I'll knock your teeth out!
What's it to you, Delvin Dum-Dum? You were told to guard me, and I'm not stopping you. But no one told me I had to shut my trap.
Who are you?
Woljif. Woljif Jefto. I deal in useful things. I can get you whatever you want. Anything. But there's just one problem.
The tiefling rattles his chains and gives you a meaningful look. What do you want from me?
I'll lay it out for you. Simple job, 30 minutes tops. We go someplace, talk to someone, and in return, whatever you want, I'll get it for you. Some extra rations? No problem. Armor, weapons, scrolls, you name it. It's as good as yours. If you need my help with something, whistle and I'll be there. I'm handy enough with knives too, and even my magic know-how isn't too shabby.
What a load of guff! If you were good at magic, you wouldn't be stuck in here now, would you?
Don't you listen to him, Chief. He'd find fault with the Queen herself. I'll be useful to have in battle, and I'll sell whatever you want at a reasonable price. It's your lucky day. You won't meet another gem like me in Canabris.
Why are you in chains?
Does it really matter? Don't get hung up on the past, Chief. Don't look to the future. Live in the here and now.
He was caught thieving.
Your shadow, what was that?
Get me out of here and I'll tell you. And don't worry, it's not contagious.
The tiefling grins and laughs. Can't help you while you're chained up in here. How can I free you?
That's easy. You know Irabeth? Feisty looking gal, always wears armor. You can't miss her. She's the meanest fighter in the whole city. When you see her, put in a good word for me, will ya? Tell her there's this guy Woljif locked up for no good reason in the Defender's Heart. Well, for the follies of his youth. And he really wants to get out on bail so he can keep up his good behavior and make a contribution to society. You got that? Will you do it?
Alright, I'll talk to Irabeth about your situation.
I knew I could count on you. Knew it the moment I laid eyes on you.
We'll talk later. Alrighty, back upstairs we go, but not quite yet. We have to go outside first. There is a person outside we need to talk to. About a sword. Specifically Radiance. This is Joran Vane. This is Staunton Vane's brother. A grizzled dwarf turns a blade in his calloused hands, carefully inspecting its edge. When he sees you approaching, he sets the blade aside and greets you with a nod. A new face in the city. You picked a good time to come to Canabris. As you can see, we're in sore need of warriors. Do you know everyone in Canabris by sight? Well, not everyone, but I make it a business to know the people who might need my services. A blacksmith's work isn't just at the anvil, you know. It's hard not to notice your kind. Awesomars aren't all that common around here, apart from Ramian, the prior of the Temple of Desna. Spiritual fellow, a bit woolly-headed, and there's also that Count something or other, some mucky-muck, not the type to visit a smithy in person. Are you Staunton Vane's brother? Yep, where he goes I go. That's how we've always done it. Even before the world wound, I forge the armor, he goes into battle and breaks it. He brings it back to me and I repair it to make it better than before. Everything's changed since then, of course, but that part has stayed the same. How was Staunton to blame for the fall of Dresden? I've told this story so many times already. Well, telling it one more won't kill me. The blacksmith sighs. Dresden was built after the First Crusade, back when it seemed like victory was ours for the taking, and that the demon invasion would soon be an end. The population of Old Sark Chorus was thoroughly diminished, and many of them hoped to see their hard fighting repaid with a small plot of unclaimed land. Dresden was a fortress built on all our hopes, and on Mendiv's ambitions. They're not supposed to say that out loud. What a city it was, Eltimar. You can't even imagine. It was built by the finest engineers from the Five Kings Mountains. Queen Galfrey spared no expense. Dresden was meant to be the capital of the Crusade movement, a monument to its glory and a beacon of hope for all Golarion. Heroes were drawn there to seek the fame and glory, and they came from all over. Taldor, Garand, Tianja? Yeah, can't list them all. A relic known as the Sword of Valor was kept there, a banner that had been carried into battle by Iomade herself, back when she was still human. The banner protected the city and kept the demons from teleporting inside its walls. As long as the banner was in place, Dresden was invincible, or so we thought. But then the world wound suddenly expanded, the demons launched a new onslaught, and folks started saying it was time to declare the Second Crusade. Dresden was unassailable until one young officer was tempted by a beautiful woman. She convinced him that the banner shouldn't be hanging in the city, that its rightful place was on the battlefield. She whispered honeyed words about glory and valor and convinced him that he could be a great hero as Iomade herself. And then the poor fool believed her. He rounded up some of his hot-headed friends, carried the banner outside the city gates on an unauthorized foray. The demons slaughtered them within seconds, but for some reason the courageous ringleader was spared. A whole army teleported into Dresden. It was a bloodbath. Joran solemnly shakes his head. As you can guess, the young officer was Staunton Vane, and the woman turned out to be a demon, not just any demon. It was Minago, that foul wretch. She's given us a lot of grief here in Canabris too. Just don't ask me why, or what I was doing while my brother was off having trysts with that beast, and why I didn't save him from his own stupidity. The blacksmith gestures as if to ward off the inevitable reprobation. Who could have guessed that it would end like this? I failed my brother, that's the truth. I blame myself every day looking at his plight. So that's the story. Why do you have your forge here in the tavern yard? Wherever I am, that's where my forge is. A true master of any craft will always find the tools they need. I miss my old forge, of course. Now just a pile of charred stone and metal, but I got my hands, and that means I can work. Do you recognize this sword? Radiance? Do I recognize it? Of course I do. I made this with my own hands. There's my brand, see? The dwarf carefully takes the sword in his hands, gazing at it like a doting father. Oh yeah, Neil, things have been tough without you, but at least we still got your sword, and that's something. Joran returns the sword to you. In battle, ordinary swords get blunted, they break, but sometimes a weapon can preserve. I don't know how to explain it. No authority on these things, but something like an echo of the deeds done with the weapon, or more like the reflection of the wielder's soul? I don't know. I will say one thing, take care of that sword. Yaniel may no longer be with us, but the demons will still remember why they need to turn tail and run when they see Radiance. Ugh, the scabbard's all worn. Can't be having a fine sword like this, being carried around in that tatty thing. Make you a new one if you like. If the city stands strong and we will survive, come see me again. I'll have it ready, no charge. I have to go. Torag, watch over you. If you need something from me, don't be afraid to stop by. We will be doing inventory management stuff between videos, selling all our junk. He doesn't have the sword yet. I checked on the good campaign. The +3 sword we're hoping to get, so... And it's not like we could afford it anyways. Irabeth rubs her red and tired eyes. Any success? How's the city? There's a tiefling chained up in the Defender's Heart. What can you tell me about him? Irabeth shrugs scornfully. Woljif is a petty thief from a gang of Thieflings operating in Kyrieru. That's what we call them in these parts. They tried to rob a vendor of magical items recently. Unfortunately, we apprehended only one of them, and the rest managed to escape. We have nowhere else to keep him apart from the Defender's Heart, but that's hardly a prison. Woljif knows it too. He's been begging us for days to let him go free, or have someone vouch for him. He's already asked her to put in a good word for him, hasn't he? Irabeth squints at you thoughtfully, then shrugs. If you want to recruit Woljif and put him to good use, go ahead. Take him off our guards' hands. We can ill afford to let a soldier spend their days watching over a middling thief. Hope the tiefling proves useful, should you decide to take him along. What's our main objective? You heard what the demon said. They're going to desecrate the Wardstone and blow up the whole barrier around the World Wound. That would be an even worse disaster than the World Wound's expansion before the Second Crusade. Not only Kyrieru, but every city with a Wardstone will be destroyed, including the capital. We can't allow that, no matter what. We will retake it, even destroy it if we must. Iomede's gift must not become a weapon of the Abyss. These Wardstones, what are they? They are our greatest treasure, the shield given to us by Iomede herself and placed in Kyrieru and other Mendevian cities and fortresses by her herald. The chain of Wardstones forms a protective barrier that stops the expansion of the World Wound and keeps the demons from moving beyond its borders. I shudder to think what will happen if that barrier falls. Got a few more personal questions. Frowning a little, Irabeth nods. Please, but I must warn you, there are some things I don't have the right to discuss. Where are you from? I was born in Kyrieru. I grew up on a farm just outside of it, but my way back home lay at the end of a long and winding road. It took me years of traveling through foreign lands before I came to be where I've always belonged. How'd you become a paladin? A bitter smile appears on the half-orc's face. I don't much like to remember it, believe it or not. The story of how I became a paladin is also the story of how I failed to become a knight. My parents were crusaders, may their souls stand together in Iomede's celestial army. When I was born, they retired from the war and started preparing me to continue their legacy. But my father was an orc. You'd be pressed to find a calmer, wiser, more pious servant of the goddess than he, but still. All his life he was dogged by sideways looks and whispers. When I grew older, and it was time for me to serve, I decided anywhere but Kyrieru. That was where my father had served loyally, and his only reward had been injustice. Besides, the witch hunters, led by the honorable prelate Halrin, stalked the city with a heavy hand. Who knows what they would have done to a strange girl with green skin. Instead I went to... A smirk that looks more like a painful grimace crosses her face. You can laugh if you want, but I was young and foolish. I chose Lastwall of all places. You can imagine how well I was accepted in a country that's been battling the orcs of Belkzen since its foundation. There were many there like me, but we were all treated as second-class citizens. To the locals, my green skin was worse than leper scabs. Even my brothers in faith kept their distance. I took my vows and the goddess granted me the powers of a paladin. But even then, not a single order would have accepted me into their ranks. I spent another 6 months knocking on doors before I realized a simple truth. I serve Iomede, not these people. I don't have to prostrate myself before them, so I left as a paladin, but not a knight. You must stick out like a sore thumb no matter where you go, right? I know many people envy Osmars, but most of the ones I've known found their celestial heritage to be a burden. I find it hard to imagine what unasked for adoration must be like, but I'm sure it doesn't make life any easier or more pleasant. How'd you come to join a knightly order? I left Lastwall and went traveling. The goddess guided me and my path led me to where atrocities were happening. I often fought in exchange for gold, but never for unworthy aims, of course. I wandered the River Kingdoms for a few years, killing monsters and tracking down criminals. Sometimes I thought I was just wasting time, that my true place was in Kyrieru. But I pushed those thoughts away. I didn't even want to think about going back. But in the end, divine providence had brought me to my senses. It happened in Timon. I was tracking a gang of bandits, which my employer suspected was a cover for Razmiran spies. I managed to find their lair, but inside I found something far more dangerous than spies, an unholy temple to Zon Cathan. When I broke in there, the cultists were about to sacrifice someone, the person who was destined to become my wife, Anevia. But that's another story. After I cut down all the cultists, I examined their papers and couldn't believe my eyes. A network of evil cults had spread through all Avestan, including Mendev. Worse, the documents clearly show that their allies, the Templars of the Ivory Labyrinth, had infested my native Kyrieru, and were even among the ranks of the Paladins. After that, delaying my homecoming was tantamount to desertion. Luckily, I was no longer alone, and Anevia was as eager to destroy the cultists as I was. Anevia and I hurried to Kyrieru. We couldn't trust anyone. Papers indicated that the cultists had infiltrated everything. Luckily, I had some experience in investigation, and my beloved, the half-orc smiles warmly, she knew her way around working locks, tailing people, and trading information with the city's bottom feeders. Soon we defeated, alas not the whole Hydra, but a few of its heads. Do you know who turned out to be the leader of the cultists? The commander of the Eagle Watch. Can you imagine, while Prelate Halrin was chasing witches through the city, the enemy had infiltrated the very order responsible for internal security? The scandal reached the ears of the Queen. At first she planned to disband the order in disgrace, but then she offered its command to me, and put its salvation in my hands. Of course, there was one small catch. I wasn't tonight, but I was made commander just the same, skipping the usual progression through the ranks. How did the people of Knabris feel about your background? They tolerated it surprisingly well. I shouldn't have been so wary. Crusaders don't tend to be prejudiced as a rule. After all, heroes from all over the world, even from other continents, come here to fight the demons. Apparently the people were only suspicious of full-blooded orcs. There are already many like me here, and we don't have any problems, though the locals do have their superstitions. Mendev is as merciless as Last Wall. They just have a different set of victims. I kept seeing those same sideways looks and scowls, hearing the familiar whispers. But where once they used to whisper behind my back and point at me, now they whisper in my ear and point at somebody else. It's so strange to be on the other side of humiliation, to wipe the spit from your face, and suddenly be invited to change position and spit at someone else. You must have figured out by now that I'm talking about the Tieflings. It's true there are many of them among the cultists, and a few among our crusaders. And our fighters do all they can to drive away those who would be our allies. People shun them, call them Arilu's spawn or worse, as if they chose to be born like that. I believe it's quite a feat to rise against the calling of one's blood and join the forces of good. Still, most only see them as the enemy. I once saw a knight bleeding to death because he wouldn't let a tiefling priest touch his wound. Alas, I haven't been able to change this in all my time in Knabris. Tell me about Anevia. We met in Timon as I was wandering aimlessly from one ordeal to another, returned to Knabris together to expose the Templars of the Ivory Labyrinth, which is a very cool name. The day the Queen knighted me was the second happiest of my life. The first was the day of our wedding. But Anevia isn't just my beloved, she's my staunchest ally. We share every victory and defeat. The best of me is alive thanks to her. Thank you for saving her back then, the day Knabris fell. Before her return, the only thing giving me the strength to protect Defender's heart was the hope that I'd see her again. We are in your debt. Thanks. Tell me about the Eagle Watch. It was a small order, created to fight not only demons but also the enemy within, to maintain the purity of the paladin ranks, to prevent heresy, and identify spies. And it failed miserably at that. The Templars of the Ivory Labyrinth infiltrated it and formed their nest within its ranks. After the Queen entrusted me with leading the order, Anevia and I practically built it from scratch. We got rid of the dead weight, people who weren't committed. We found ways to transmit messages and orders safely. We introduced reliable ciphers. We found tacit allies around the city, from crusader orders to street beggars. This was my personal crusade, to purge the city of Templars who had infested it, and I thought I was winning. I could feel it. We were so close to driving the cultists out of Knabris, but Irabeth frowns. It's hard to admit, but those successes don't count for much once the demons entered the city. Well, we're the evil person, so success. When we got up to the surface, there were more cultists in the city than crusaders. What exactly was your order doing? Irabeth lowers her head. We did all we could, but it wasn't enough. The cultists were everywhere from the start, and the demons just razed everything to the ground despite our efforts. I have to go. I feel kind of bad about that. She was really trying to make a better place, and we just kind of smacked her down for it. But that is what evil does. Evil is an asshole. Evil people are jerks, and that's just the way of the world. Let's go get Woljif out.
Well, Chief, what do you got for me?
Woljif is sitting in the same place with his tail impatiently batting the floor. Talked to Irabeth and I've decided to make you part of my troop. We'll see how it goes.
Ha! You must be a smooth talker. Come on, Delvin. Get these bracelets of yours off me. I'm going free.
Woljif leaps to his feet and gleefully rubs his hands.
You're sure to regret this. This tiefling will fleece you for everything you've got. Mark my words.
You're a bitter little man, Delvin. Petty and mean. You can't even be happy for me, can ya? I pity you. I'll leave you alone with your sad little soul. So long. And now, Chief, straight down to business. You see, I'm one of those guys that people around here call Thieflings. We just call ourselves the family. After we knocked over that shop and I got stuck here in the Defender's Heart, a little bird told me that Big Sister Karisme wanted to see me. That she had some questions to ask me. You following?
Woljif is freed from his shackles and rubs his chafed wrists. He glances around, making sure no one is listening in.
Now, she won't be asking me questions like, Woljif, how'd you manage to get out of this one? Or, Woljif, you're so thin, didn't they feed you? No, something serious has gone down, and I just know they want to try to pin something on me. I can feel it in my tail. So, I knew right away that I couldn't go alone. You turned up just in time, Chief. You don't need to do anything when we get there. Just stand behind me and look mean, and I'll handle the rest. Somehow. Let's go. I'll show you the way.
Alright, we are going to be done our video at this point then. We've freed Woljif, he's going to be part of our group. He might actually be a more permanent member of our group, although he's chaotic neutral, I believe. And we are lawful evil, because monk is important. For now, though, I'm going to leave you guys here. In the next video, I think, well, between videos, I'm going to go sell some stuff. I'm going to just check around to make sure we didn't miss talking to anyone. and then we'll head out into the city itself. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.